In this video, I want to walk you through what the price action is showing us right now, what the leverage data reveals about the market, why this sell-off feels completely different from past crashes, and what all of this could mean for where XRP and the broader crypto market may be headed next. Because when you look at the fundamentals, things honestly look stronger than ever, yet prices are moving as if the industry is falling apart. And that disconnect is something we need to talk about. Hey guys, welcome back to Whiteboard Crypto Update. In today's video, we will talk about XRP. So be sure to stay focused, as you surely don't want to miss out on this. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications by hitting the bell so you never miss any of our uploads. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. So starting with XRP in the short term, we can see that price is clearly trying to stabilize after this massive liquidation event as dips are getting bought up, and we're seeing long wicks forming at the bottom of several candles, which often signals buyers stepping in. But at the same time, we still haven't seen that huge surge in volume that normally confirms a strong market bottom. So it feels like XRP is searching for support and drifting deeper into oversold territory without fully locking in that reversal yet. And when you zoom out to the longer-term XRP chart, something really interesting appears, because price is currently hovering around a major historical resistance zone that previously acted as an all-time high region. And instead of completely breaking down through it, XRP has actually been holding above this key level, which is extremely important. Because ideally, what we would want to see next is a strong bounce with a large green candle pushing price clearly back above these past highs and confirming them as support, which would signal strength and open the door for renewed upside momentum. While the worst-case scenario would be XRP falling straight through this area and continuing lower. But based on everything happening fundamentally, it's honestly hard to imagine that type of breakdown lasting very long. And that's what makes this entire crash so confusing, because during major events like FTX, the reasons were obvious. As companies were collapsing, projects were blowing up, major institutions were being forced to liquidate positions, and fear was everywhere. But right now, we don't see any massive companies suddenly going bankrupt. We don't see huge negative news dominating headlines. And there isn't some clear catalyst driving this chaos, yet we're experiencing one of the largest liquidation events in crypto history, which naturally leads to the uncomfortable question of whether we're about to move into this new week and suddenly discover that some major player quietly collapsed behind closed doors. Because from the surface, this price action doesn't make much logical sense. And when you take a closer look at the leverage ratios in the market, things become even more revealing. Because almost all leveraged long positions have already been wiped out, meaning traders who were betting on prices going higher using borrowed money have mostly been forced out. And now the majority of remaining leverage sits above current prices, which tells us that what's left in the market is mostly short positions betting on further downside. And this kind of setup usually happens after a massive reset, where someone or a group of large players aggressively pushed prices down to trigger liquidations, flush out leverage, scare people out of positions, and scoop up assets at cheaper levels. And now that leverage has largely been cleared, it becomes much harder to continue pushing prices lower without real negative fundamental news. Because at this point, we're mostly in a spot-driven market where buying and selling is happening naturally rather than through forced liquidations, which makes it difficult to see where heavy sell pressure would even come from now. And adding to that, XRP is currently sitting at oversold levels we haven't seen since mid-2024, right before it made a massive upward move that carried into late 2024 and early 2025. And historically, these extreme oversold conditions don't stick around for long, especially when fundamentals remain strong. And from what I'm personally seeing, there isn't widespread panic selling in the spot market or a massive loss of confidence in crypto as an industry. Instead, it feels like this entire move was largely a giant leverage flush designed to shake out weak hands. And one of the most important confirmations of this comes from the XRP to Bitcoin chart, which is actually holding up surprisingly well, because normally when Bitcoin drops, XRP falls much harder. But this time, XRP is declining at almost the same pace as Bitcoin, and in some areas even showing relative strength. And in fact, XRP is still holding an overall uptrend against Bitcoin since its big move in 2024, which means while XRP's dollar value looks rough, it's actually performing much better compared to BTC than it usually does during sell-offs, making this one of the only charts that still looks constructive right now, while most others are desperately trying to find a bottom. And again, that brings us back to how strange this whole situation is, because there's no clear fundamental reason for such aggressive selling, no major collapses, no huge wave of bad news, and no extreme leverage left to flush. Yet price keeps moving lower in ways that feel almost illogical, and markets tend to behave like this near major turning points where fear peaks and logic temporarily disappears. And now I want to talk about something extremely important that recently came out, which really helps put the bigger picture into perspective, because new historical information has surfaced showing that since XRP was created back in 2012, some of the most powerful people in U.S. government and finance have been closely watching it from the very beginning, with discussions involving early crypto influencers, major tech companies, financial institutions, and political leaders, making it clear that XRP was never some forgotten side project, but instead had attention at the highest levels almost immediately. And if someone launched a random token today, there's no chance. Top political figures, banking executives, and corporations would instantly start discussing it behind closed doors, which only happens when something is viewed as potentially transformative. And what these documents suggest is that there was an early power struggle in the crypto world, with strong forces backing Bitcoin on one side and strong forces backing XRP and Ripple's technology on the other. And this wasn't a niche experiment because it reached the highest levels of finance and government almost instantly, even though the public narrative for years made crypto seem like something nobody important cared about. While behind the scenes it was being monitored, discussed, and influenced by powerful groups, which helps explain the constant regulatory pressure, the meetings with central banks, the Federal Reserve, the IMF, and financial institutions, because none of that was random, and all of it shows that this industry has been considered important for a very long time. And when you connect that with what's happening in the market right now, it really feels like we're at a major transition point, with regulatory clarity getting closer, institutional involvement increasing, and infrastructure being built. And historically, right before big shifts happen, there's usually one last violent shakeout designed to scare people out, force doubt, and allow big players to accumulate at lower prices. And that's exactly what this moment feels like, with too much positive development and not enough genuine negative catalysts to justify such a massive crash. Which is why it seems more like a forced reset rather than a true breakdown. And I think a lot of people right now are confused and frustrated, wondering when things will finally start making sense again. But the reality is, markets often make the least sense right before they reverse. And while it's impossible to time the exact bottom moments like this, often end up being defining periods where people either panic and leave or stay patient and make it through to the other side. So if you're still here watching, you're already stronger than most, because this is one of the toughest stretches we've seen in a while, but also the kind of moment people look back on years later and realize it was a major turning point. And as we head into the coming days, we'll see whether we get one final shakeout or finally begin stabilizing. But either way, this period won't last forever. And staying patient and informed during times like this is often what separates those who struggle from those who succeed in the long run. Well, guys, that's all we have for you today. What are your thoughts on XRP? Get involved and let us know in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, then be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you for watching.